when Republicans ask the outside groups to get out there and advocate and argue, the outside groups have no reason to believe that the Republicans will allow them to recover their investment. That is to say that the Republicans are asking the outside groups to do all the heavy lifting, and there's no credibility amongst them that they will do some heavy lifting too to get the word out to the American people. And unfortunately, that's the political nature of it. The constitutional nature of it is that we have got to view this as a great debate, a great opportunity, and it starts with judging, an ability to judge the president who nominates.
Quick question for Roger. Roger, I guess some of the reasons you have the slumbering opposition now to Sotomayor is that the perception is that she's replacing a very liberal justice. Is there any issue, or is there any group of issues where she may actually move the court to the left as opposed to just changing this, or just as opposed to remaining status quo where it's 4 justices with Kennedy in the middle?
Well, that's a good question. I think that she, put it this way, she is at least as liberal as Justice Souter, and I think there's a lot of likelihood that she is more liberal. Again, the New Haven firefighters case, the Obama administration filed a brief with the Supreme Court that said that her decision in the Second Circuit should be reversed. This is the Obama administration. And I think it's very likely that all 9 justices, including Justice Souter, will come to that conclusion. Now, they may disagree with the Justice Souter and the liberal wing may disagree with the conservative wing on what the legal standard should be when the case is sent back. But I think that it's quite likely that it could be 9-0 that the decision that Justice Sotomayor, or Judge, Sotomayor joined was wrong. So that's just one example. You know, she's I think on campaign finance, but these are other areas where there have been flags, and those are areas, particularly property rights, where Souter has not been as bad as some other justices have. So plus I guess the other thing I would say, Tom, is that the argument that she's not going to be any worse is not very persuasive to me because she's a lot younger, so that makes her worse. And there's also the problem that I don't think that we lose anything by seizing on this teaching moment. Right. We're not. It's sort of like in baseball. When you argue with the umpire, the conventional wisdom is always, you're not expecting, you're not arguing for this time, you're arguing for next time. Mm-hmm. And I think that Republicans and conservatives don't lose anything by saying that, look, this is what the right standard is, and we've got real concerns that standard isn't being met.
Republicans are obligated. Democrat, all members of presumably as officers of taking their oaths, they're all obligated to protect the Constitution. On the Wise Latina comment, I think it's useful to point out that her argument there was not with us. It was with Justice O'Connor, the woman that she's there because Justice O'Connor retired. The search was limited to women because they wanted another woman on the court. And Justice O'Connor said that old wise man and old wise woman, or a wise old man and a wise old woman would come to the same conclusion when it came to judicial decision making. And Judge Sotomayor said, well, I don't know about that. I don't know what wise is. And I said, in the end, I think a Latina woman with the experiences of a Latina woman would come to better decisions, or should, I would hope, than a white male. An extraordinary, that comment, is she a racist as a result of that comment? No. Is the comment racist? Yes. And if she's not held to account for that by Democrats, My expectation, I agree, we should expect Republicans to do the right thing. I don't think, I believe in prodigal sons. I think Democrats should be brought back into the fold on the Constitution as well.
I think that's right, and I think that this is really that statement really calls into question in a very fundamental way, the rule of law, and it also calls into question in a very fundamental way, the principle that is, the American principle that my organization, the Center for Equal Opportunity, has as its priority, and that is the principle of e pluribus unum. We should all, as Americans, have certain fundamental things in common. And one of them is a devotion to the rule of law and a willingness to follow that law in a way that applies it equally to everybody and is interpreted the same way by everybody. We're not black, white, Latino, Latina, Asian, Middle Eastern. First or foremost, we're Americans, and that's the way that our legal regime should work.
Curt, do you have any final points? I do want to get a question or two in before we leave. We're running over a little bit.
Well, just about the empathy and the wise Latina point. Again, if you don't think about it too hard, it doesn't sound so bad. But ask yourself, if you went before a judge and before the judge considered his decision, he said, I've got an awful lot of empathy for your opponent. Would you feel like the judge was wearing the canonical blindfold? No, you wouldn't. Or what if the judge said, I think ethnic heritage is very important to judging, and I noticed that your opponent, we're both Hispanic. Again, would you feel like you were getting a fair shake? You wouldn't. So, again, look past the flowery language and ask yourself if you want the blindfold on justice or a judge who considers their various experiences and ethnic heritage and frankly prejudices. We can debate whether in other circumstances it matters what she did when she was on Pearl Deaf, but she's told us that her life experiences are going to influence her judging, and her 12 years on the board of Pearl Deaf are part of those life experiences. She's told us that judges are policymakers, so we ought to know what policies she supported when she was on the board of Pearl Deaf, and so far Pearl Deaf has refused to provide most of the documents requested, not just by the Republicans, but by the Democrats on the judiciary staff. And just remember, the Democrats' excuse for holding up Miguel Estrada for 2 years was that they didn't get all the documents they wanted. In that case, the documents were protected by executive privilege. There's no such rationale here.
Well, I'm going to try to get at least two questions in, since I know my past experience with these panels is that people want to give a full response. So I have two questions, and I see the gentleman. We have a microphone, so you're recorded there. Thank you.
Is it not true that the Connecticut firefighters' case will be decided by the end of this month before the hearings next month? And is it not true that concerning the tethering of decisions to a written constitution is being reviewed in England, the English are trying to write a constitution, which I think is highly ironic?
Well, I don't know about the English example, but we are, Roger, you following this case very closely. It's either today or Monday that it will be released, right?
Yeah, and I guess it did, Andrew, it did not come down today, is that correct?
I haven't got any message.
Okay,
Check
very good.
Chris, checks.
It's going to be Monday, okay. But no, the questioner is correct that it's due to come down before the end of the court's term, and the court's term ends next week. So it should